It's December 5th, 2021. I'm training at my local gym, and on one throw, I completely tear my UCL in half. My senior season of baseball, gone. My college career completely up in the air, and it feels like my life is crumbling beneath my feet. Little do I know, though, that this is just... During my TJ rehab, I made a decision that would change the trajectory of my entire life. I decided that this surgery would not take me away from the game of baseball. So I did the one other thing that I knew how to do, and that was to pick up a camera. From that point on, my life would never be the same. I spent the beginning of that spring taking photos for my own high school team, and I began posting them to my Instagram page. And before I knew it, I was the shit. Before I knew it, I was on the road 3 times a week. I completely ditched my own high school baseball team, and I was hustling every single kid that I could find for $40 a pop to sell my photos to. I had never had a normal high school job. My parents were constantly on my butt trying to get me to go get one, and yet I found myself running this business, doing something that I actually enjoyed. That was the turning point. From that spring on, I would go to every single local baseball tournament in my area, go up, cold approach players and parents, and hustle them to sell my photos and videos. I'd be collecting enough $20 bills in the span of 3 hours to eat at Chipotle for an entire month, and I was getting high off of running this business. But before I knew it, it was time to go to college, and I was stoked. I immediately found my way in with the creative department at my school, and I began shooting for every single sports team that we had. I started to push off social events so I could continue to work for the school and make it to every single sporting event. I'd stay up late in my dorm editing all this stuff, and then I'd begin posting all that stuff out on my personal Instagram. And at this point, I'm just becoming fully immersed in the creative process. Before I knew it, after posting consistently on my personal Instagram page, I had multiple people hit me up asking for content throughout that following summer. I spent that summer with one main client that gave me an opportunity to travel the country, which I will forever be grateful for because it completely changed the perspective that I had on life. I finally understood that there is so much out there in this world and so much possible for me to go out and accomplish simply by me just posting my work consistently, putting my name out there as much as possible, and overall just doing something that I love. It was at this point that I really began to understand what kind of opportunity was literally sitting in the palm of my hand. So throughout that summer and going into that fall, I decided to really hone in on posting as much as possible about my work and my story to my Instagram page so I could hopefully find more work through that. And yet again, opportunity came knocking. In September of my sophomore year of college, I got invited to the Prep Baseball Report All-American game by Sunglasses brand to come out and create content at Miller Park, which was my home stadium growing up. I'd go watch games there all the time. So as a 19-year-old kid, I found myself at Miller Park on the field, shooting for one of the biggest events in the country and having just an absolute blast. This event was truly amazing, but at the time I had no idea how big of an impact this one event would have on my career. I remember going to that event just trying to pump out as much quality content as I possibly could because I understood it was a massive event and I knew there's going to be a lot of other brands and businesses there looking at the content that I'd be pumping out. So I was doing everything I possibly could just to leave an impact on that event. So on the Friday night of that event, I remember I'm scrolling through my Instagram and I get a new follow notification, and it turns out that it's one of the Mizuno marketing directors. Mizuno is the biggest sponsor of this event. So the next day I decided to go up and introduce myself to now one of my good friends and clients. And I simply go up and literally all I say is, "Hey, my name is Ryan. I saw you followed me on Instagram. I just wanted to come up and introduce myself." She replies back simply, "Hey, nice to meet you. Thanks for the introduction." We go our separate ways and that's it. I head home for the event. I know I crushed it. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm just high on life still because I got to film at the big league stadium that I grew up watching games at. So a few weeks later, I get an email with the subject line. I'll pop it up right now. It says, "PBR All-American Game question and photo shoot quote." And at this point, I remember I'm sitting upstairs in my college house, and I'm just like sitting there. I'm like, I'm like, yep. I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking to myself, what the actual I'm like, this isn't real. That's not real. And at this point, I'm like stressing though, because she's asking me for a quote on like a photo shoot. I'm like, oh my God. Like, what do I price this at? I don't want to outprice myself. I don't want to charge a lot. Like, I don't know what to do. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So I quote this billion-dollar company $750. $750 for me to come out to Nebraska for a day and do an NIL shoot with literally one of the biggest names in the softball space. Like literally the biggest name in the softball space. $750, take it or leave it. if you want it, I'll come out and I'll do all this stuff for you, right? Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, are they gonna say yes? Are they gonna say yes? Oh my, like, I'm stressing. I'm like, did I charge too much? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm literally like probably got like sweaty pits in my freaking college room because I'm like freaking out. But of course, I'm stoked, and before I know it, I'm on a call with this team at Mizuno, and we're planning out this shoot, and I'm just like probably missing out on like watching South Park with my roommates downstairs. I love you guys, by the way, I miss you guys, but like I'm up here having this like important conversation about this insane photo shoot that I'm about to go do with this big name in the softball space with this massive brand, and I'm literally just like chilling in my college room doing this, and I'm just like, I'm like, what is life, bro? Like, seriously, what is life? So next thing I know, I'm waking up at 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning. I'm flying out to Omaha. We have this shoot. It goes fantastic. I absolutely crush it. It was an absolute blast. I literally didn't sleep the night before, and I come home that same exact day. And my college friends are like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, what did you just do? Because I literally left at 5 a.m. I did the shoot in Omaha, flew back home that night. I'm home at like 10 p.m. I'm like, sup guys? Like, I'm back. It was that trip though was really a massive turning point for me because I was like, this shit's possible, bro. I just spawned into Omaha, did an insane photo shoot, and then I'm just back to my normal college life. That's sick. Like, let's run it back. Like, when's the next one, you know? But the question always comes up, how do I actually work with them? What does that actually look like? You hear of all these people on Instagram working with their dream clients, living the dream life, but nobody ever really talks about like the nitty-gritty details of what that actually looks like. And that's truly where the real story is at. Now, you've probably seen plenty of behind the scenes videos of what it's like to go on a photo shoot or how to edit this video, but I want to give you more tactical advice as to what it looks like and how to work with massive brands and businesses that are looking to scale on social media. So in the rest of this video, I'm going to jump into Notion, and we're going to run through exactly what it's like to work with a $1 billion brand, from pricing and selling it to planning the shoot, actually going out and shooting the content and the mindset behind that, and then finally ending off with actually delivering the content and staying organized throughout the entire process. So let's start out with selling and pricing structure. So the first thing that you're going to do when a brand reaches out to you, or if you get in touch with the brand, is hop on some sort of discovery call. And on this discovery call, our entire goal is to simply understand their needs. And by that, I mean asking discovery questions to uncover their ultimate goals and pain points behind this content. So what I usually like to ask on discovery calls is stuff along the lines of, hey, what do you want to achieve with this content? Is it sales, brand awareness, education, etc.? There's tons of different routes that they could go down with this. Who is their target audience? Who are we actually trying to speak to through this? This is really important because if we don't have a clear target audience or a clear ICA, some people might refer to it as, there's really no point in creating the content because we're not going to have like a direction or an idea in the back of our brain of who's actually trying to consume this. Who are we trying to get to consume this content? From there, I like to ask when they're looking to get started and what has prevented them from already starting. This is a great question because most likely they're going to say, well, I want to get started as soon as possible. So when you go back to actually sell them on this kind of frames them in a sense that they're ready to take action right now. And then it also is important to get clear on whether they're looking for organic content and paid content because those are two very separate avenues. I could make an entire video breaking down the difference between the two and how to go about creating each. But for this video, we're just going to move on. The final thing that I like to bring up on a discovery call, and this is something that a lot of people miss out on, is actually discussing the budget on this first call. Don't be shy. Ask about their budget directly so then the expectations are set clear because we don't want to go into creating different packages for them unless we have a clear set budget. What if, their budget is $2K? That's going to be very different than if their budget is $15K. And a lot of younger creatives kind of get scared to ask this question because they don't want to become pushy, but it's a valid question. And if a brand is really serious about this, they've definitely already put the thought into it. So asking this question can actually be a great way to find out exactly where they're at. And in my case, a lot of the times, the budget that they say is a lot higher than what I would charge because I would be scared to charge these high numbers unless I just ask them, hey, like, what are you looking to spend to bring this to life? So I would say 85% of the time, what happens after this is I set up another call, which is actually the sales call. Now, sometimes you can actually go through this entire sales process on one call. It's really up to you and how comfortable you are coming up with stuff on the spot. I like to break it up into 2 calls just so I have time to digest what I talked about and so I can actually create a package that is truly valuable to them that's going to help them out. So on this follow-up call, aka the sales call, we're going to start out by revisiting their pain points and needs. So we're going to recap the prior call by just discussing what was already talked about, bringing up those same questions again, making sure that you have everything in order properly. and making sure that everybody is on the same page. From that, we're going to move into revisiting their pain points in a little bit more depth by asking clarifying questions. So some clarifying questions that I actually just recently asked on one of my follow-up calls. This was for a business owner in particular, and the questions can kind of vary depending on the prior conversation. So for this example, I asked them, how much time do you want to spend on actually filming this content? This is an important question to ask because it gets clear on like a timeline of, okay, how much time am I actually going to be spending with this? And in that, it can kind of direct you towards a specific package on how much time you might have had set aside in the back of your head for different packages. Another question that I asked is, what social media platforms do you already have set up? This is a great question to ask because it's going to put into perspective that they might only have, Instagram and YouTube set up, but you can position yourself in a way that's saying, hey, I'm going to post for your Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, which in a sense turns 20 pieces of content into 100 different pieces of content. So that's a great question to ask to kind of break the frame open and say, hey, I'm actually going to give you way more content. And what kind of content is going out. Others are like, hey man, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, just do it for me. So this kind of gets clear on how much time are you going to be spending with that client. And this will also allow you to kind of push them into different packages and price points, because if somebody wants to be totally hands off and wants nothing to do with it and just wants you to take care of it, they're probably going to be willing to invest a little bit more so they can buy that time back. So once we kind of dived into those pain points and asking those clarifying questions, from that, we're going to be able to actually pitch our package. Now, these packages will already have been created before this call based on the prior call that we had with them, but we're going to want to show up to this call with at least 3 different packages and push them into one or the other based on those clarifying questions that we ask. So below, I have some pricing examples that I put together. Keep in mind, this is just an example. It is kind of somewhat on par with what I would actually offer, but it would be tailored a little bit more towards the specific brand need. So this is just a basic outline. So this package example could be used for e-commerce, organic content, business owners looking to grow their personal brand, or some sort of online coach looking to sell an offer. And I have it broken down into 3 different tiers here. We have gold, silver, and bronze. And you'll notice that the main difference between these is just the amount of content. And like I said, this is just an example kind of base level package that you can offer. And this price point can be justified for brands that are at a medium to high scale and already have some sort of marketing budget set aside. So what you'll notice though is the amount of content that you jump up per package kind of differs. So from bronze to silver, you only get 2 more reels for an extra 2K. But if you're going to make that jump from silver to gold for another 2K, you get 8 more reels. So you kind of see like where the value is added into that gold by pricing that bronze one of like, hey, that's like low key a shitty deal in a sense. Obviously the middle tier package is what we most likely would be aiming them at. But if they want to go higher and go for that gold package, you could say, hey, for an extra 2K, you're going to get way more content. And that to brands can be super valuable, just to kind of frame it in a sense that like I'm trying to give you more here than what you're actually paying for. I also want to mention that rev share is definitely a possibility with some brands. Personally, I don't have any clients right now that I have a rev share with, but what you can actually do is you can find ways to track those purchases and attribute them back directly into your content. So then you can justify saying, okay, I'm going to charge you an 8K retainer, but that 8K retainer made you 25K in sales, and then taking 10% of that as some sort of rev share deal. So let's move into the planning stage now. What actually goes into planning a shoot for either a massive brand or some sort of business owner looking for bulk content? So what happens is I will schedule an onboarding call with that client just days after that sales call so we can meet and actually get down to the nitty-gritty details of this. So on this call, we're going to really find out what is exactly that they need to see out of the shoot. What kind of content are they going for? What kind of style are they going for? We need to get clear on the client and the story we want to tell. We need to basically dive into their story and become very close friends with them at the end of the day. No, we're not asking them about their deepest, darkest secrets, but we need to have a really good understanding of who they are, what they do, and what their goals are. When you're on this call though, what are some questions that you can actually ask to get down to the nitty-gritty details? So I like to ask, what do you absolutely want to see out of the shoot? And from that, it'll generate, I want to see this style of content, or I want to talk about this or that, or whatever it might be. And then you can kind of mold that into a way that makes it fun for them to also be there and enjoyable for them, while also bringing them different results. Another example is, talk to me about the story behind this product, business, or brand, or whatever it is you're going to be creating content around, and really dive into that. Don't just ask this top base level question, like ask the why questions. Why did you start this? Why does this product this way? Why is it that way? Like, really dive into this, because this is going to tell you a lot about who they are and what they do. I really also like to ask them, tell me about your story from the beginning, and that will give you a full guide as to like their entire life story. And then going back into all this, I honestly, like, I feed this to ChatGPT just so like my ChatGPT bot can understand this client in depth. So when I go back and if I ever get stuck with scripting or ideating, it will have all this information. I will have all this information to reference. So once this is all put together and we're ready to actually plan the shoot out, I generate a document outlining what needs to come from the shoot. So then when I actually go to shoot it, I have a very clear and organized script as to what needs to be done that day. So here's an example that I did with Mizuno. This is for the Dick's Sporting Goods product shoot. Mizuno and I worked very hands-on together to create this. They honestly made a majority of this because they were very clear on what they needed out of the shoot. This is a really good example of what a planned shot list looks like. It's down to each individual thing that we need out of this. Granted, this is just for a photo shoot, so there's no scripts involved in this, but it's the same concept if you're going to be shooting a bunch of video that day as well. You can have all the scripts lined out on a Google Doc, ready to rock and roll, so you can show up and have something efficient to run. And I'll pop up on screen right now an example of what one of those Google Docs looks like for one of my actual clients. This is a PT client of mine. So now when it comes to actually shooting the content, I want to cover more of the mindset and conviction side of things, because most of us, if we're landing clients, we already know what we're doing with the camera and how to actually frame shots and create engaging content, whatever that might look like. But a lot of people don't think about the mindset and conviction that you should have when you go into one of these shoots, because something that I personally struggled with a lot was having the confidence to go into the shoot and like be the man, dude, like be the leader behind it. So when you're actually on site with large brands or business owners that have a hell of motion and you're getting nervous and you're not sleeping before the night of the shoot, because I've been there too, man. Like, it's scary, I know, especially when you're just starting out, but you have to remember that you got hired for a reason, bro. Like, you are in this room with this camera in the hand for a reason. You have to have faith in yourself and your abilities and just trust everything that you've done to get to this point, because I know that you've put in a lot of work. I know that you've worked hard to get to this point, and in order for you to execute on the shoot properly, I need you to have faith in yourself. I also want you to be the leader when you're on site. A lot of big brands and business owners, they want you to be in charge. That's exactly why they hired you. So if you can be the leader on the shoot and say, hey, we need to make this pivot, we need to do this, we need to do that, and be in charge of everybody and make sure that it's running smoothly and effectively, that is a key component to having an effective shoot. Not only do you have to be the leader, but I want you to lead with confidence. Carry yourself in a way that shows like you know what the is going on. Like, you know that what you're doing is going to benefit them, and are excited to get this done for them. And then provide feedback as you go along as well. Provide feedback to whoever's in front of the camera, making sure that, they are positioned properly, they're speaking with authority and the tone that we're going for, making sure that everybody is engaged in what we are doing. So now let's move into post-production and actually delivering the content. I want to talk a little bit through the system of how this operates and how I'm able to effectively do this with different brands. So the first thing I want to touch on is hiring editors. Now, you might just be starting out, or you might be in a similar position as me where you have to start hiring people out. I just want to mention this because it is a key part of it, and I don't think a lot of people realize when they're just starting out that eventually you're going to have to hire out. So when you're going to hire editors for this post-production side, number one, this should be done before the shoot, and you should have tested them on multiple projects before, whether it's for your personal brand, free work, whatever it is. I usually like to go to YT Jobs and leverage my personal brand for this. If you guys follow me, you'll see occasionally I put up posts for editors and I get a ton of people just through my personal brand to come apply and work for me. YT Jobs is also a great spot. You do have to pay to get access to the account at first, but well worth it in my opinion. There's a bunch of killers. From that, I have learned the hard way on this, but you need to train these editors like they are your child, because every editor is going to have their own style. Every editor is going to have their own process. But if you want this system to work efficiently, the more input that you put into that system, the more you're going to get out of it. So the more time you spend with each editor, actually showing them exactly what you want, exactly how your system operates, how this client is thinking, what the client wants, all that jazz, the better it is going to be for you. Now, when it comes to organizing footage, I use frame.io, and I break it down into a few key folders here. I have the raw footage, ready for review, and final. So if you are working with an editor, or even if you're working solo, this is a great way to stay organized, because something that I've struggled with for a long time is actually keeping all the footage organized. I'm sure you guys have seen on your own SSDs, if you're anything like me, just an absolute mess of freaking files and folders everywhere. through Frame.io. It's basically Google Drive for videographers, and I like to keep it separated by project, by type of footage, whether it's raw, ready for review, or final, and that way it just creates a smooth system for everybody involved. Now, once you have some footage that is actually ready for review, whether you edited it or your editor edited it, you can go onto the quality check stage, and I like to be in touch with the client throughout this whole process saying, hey, my editor's beginning to work on this, or I'm beginning to work on this. Video 1 will be done by X date. You can expect it here. Here's the link for when it is uploaded. And then once that quality check finally comes around, you can send the link over to them again, send the drafts there, have the client watch it, and have proactive communication. And by that, I mean, be on top of it, be the first one to reach out to them, stay in touch with them throughout the entire process. And I am guilty of not doing that myself. I have struggled with that. I currently still struggle with that, yet I'm preaching it to you guys because I know I need to change, and I know that it will benefit you guys as well. Because if the client is reaching out to you asking for updates first, unless it's like 30 seconds after the shoot, you've probably already messed up, and I have learned the hard way from that, and I want you guys to be set out on the right foot. When it comes to revisions, large-scale clients often utilize less than the lower-paying clients in my experience, but sometimes there will be minor tweaks needed. I think it's this way simply because when you're working with a large-scale brand, they know exactly what they want, and they can communicate that very well, so it's almost easier to put together stuff for them. Whereas on the lower-paying clients, sometimes it can be a little bit more of a mix-up as to what their actual vision is and what they really are looking to get out of it, and sometimes they just overthink it a lot more than the larger brands. From that, you're ready to deliver the final product, drop it into the final folder on Frame.io or whatever system that you use. And from that, you're ready to rock and roll, man. So if you're a photo or video creator and you're just getting started in the space, or maybe you've already been at it for a while, I hope that this video inspired you and taught you even just one thing that you can apply to your next client. And on the other hand, if you're a business owner that's struggling to create this content system for yourself, click the link below to get in touch with me today. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.